You know, whether we're talking about massive skyscrapers or even ancient temples, there's this one fundamental truth. It is one thing to build something amazing, but it's a completely different challenge to make it last. And the secret to that, well, it's a pretty fascinating puzzle.
So let me ask you this. What do you think is the world's tallest unoccupied building? Any ideas? The answer is this huge, modern monument to incredible ambition, but also to spectacular failure. And here it is, the Ryugyong Hotel in Pyongyang, North Korea. This thing is a 105-story pyramid-shaped behemoth. And its story, wow, it tells us so much about that difference between just building something and actually maintaining it. Okay, so here's how it all went down. Construction kicks off way back in 1987, and really it was all about rivalry. A South Korean company was building a huge skyscraper, so North Korea had to have one too. But just a couple of years in, their main backer, the Soviet Union, completely collapses. The money just vanished and everything just stopped. And get this, the hotel was designed to have 3,000 guest rooms. Today, more than 30 years after they stopped working on it, not a single one of those rooms has ever had a single guest. Not one.
So what you're left with is this giant, empty shell. It's literally a ghost hotel. It costs way too much to finish, it costs too much to maintain, and it even costs too much to tear down. It's the perfect picture of a project that had all the explosive energy of creation, but zero plan for how to endure.
And the story of this hotel, it really brings us to a super important point that you can apply to almost anything, right? A business, a relationship, a personal goal. The real test isn't the building part, it's the maintaining part.
We all love celebrating the build phase, don't we? It's exciting, it's new, it's full of energy, the thrill of making something. But the real measure of success, the thing that actually matters in the long run, is the maintain phase. That's the quiet, disciplined, consistent work. It's definitely not as glamorous, but it is infinitely more important.
So, how do you actually succeed at maintenance? Well, it pretty much boils down to two key ingredients. First, you need a resilient system. That's the structure, the routine, the framework that holds it all together. And second, you need a sincere heart. That's the passion, the purpose, the why that fuels the whole thing from the inside. And you absolutely need both. A system with no heart is just a hollow, empty shell. I mean, it's the Ryugyong Hotel, right? But a heart with no system is just fragile. It's going to collapse at the first sign of trouble. And this exact idea is at the very center of another, much older story. So let's jump way back in time to ancient Jerusalem and talk about one of the most legendary structures ever built, the first temple, built by King Solomon. After 20 long years of planning and building, the Bible says the temple was finally finished. But the moment this happens is kind of weird. It's not when the last golden nail was hammered in. It was only after Solomon set up a regular routine of worship inside it.
What's really fascinating here is the original term used for finished. Its meaning goes so much deeper than just, finishing a construction project. See, the temple wasn't seen as finished when the last stone was laid. No, it was only truly finished when the system of regular worship was put in place. That's what gave the physical building its living, ongoing purpose. The building was just a shell until the heart of worship started beating inside it. But right after this huge accomplishment, Solomon gets a very direct, very serious warning from God about the future of this incredible building. And the promise was huge. If the people held up their end of the bargain, if they maintained the system of laws and kept that sincere heart of faith, then God promised to bless the kingdom and live in that temple forever. But the warning, wow, it was just as stark. If they abandoned that faith, if the heart was lost, and the system was ignored, God would cast the temple out of his sight, and the whole nation would become a cautionary tale for everyone else. And centuries later, after the kingdom had fallen and the temple was just a pile of rubble, that warning finally gave the answer to the one question that haunted everyone who survived.
Why did this happen? Was the enemy's army just too strong? Was there a flaw in the design? Did the walls need to be thicker? The people were desperate to understand how something so glorious could be so completely destroyed.
And the answer in the text is crystal clear. The building didn't fail them. They failed the building. They lost their sincere heart for God, and they abandoned the system of faith He had given them. The physical structure was still amazing, but its soul, its entire purpose, was gone.
And this chart just shows it perfectly. Look, the architectural glory, still at 100%. But the spiritual purpose, It had faded to almost nothing. And once that purpose disappeared, so did the divine presence. The building was just a magnificent, empty shell, totally vulnerable to destruction.
And you know what? This isn't just some ancient story. We see the exact same thing happening today. All over Europe, you've got these beautiful, historic churches that have lost their congregations, they've lost their heart, and they've been repurposed. Their sacred purpose is gone, and now they're just shells being used as pubs, museums, and even indoor skate parks.
So from Pyongyang's ghost hotel to Jerusalem's fallen temple, the lesson is exactly the same. The biggest threat to our greatest achievements, it's almost never some force from the outside. It's the decay from within that happens when we forget to maintain both the system and the sincere heart that gave it life in the first place. Which kind of leaves us with one big question. In our own lives, in our work, in our communities, what vital purpose are we forgetting to maintain?